Hi readers, my name is Jess, and today I'm going to be talking about the 5 books that I read in June. I'm really excited to talk about them and hopefully give you a better idea of what you can expect from these titles. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first book that I picked up in June was Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong, and this book was recommended to me in a very thoughtful comment, and I'm not surprised to say that I adored every page of it. It's a dark academia high fantasy following 27-year-old Siona, who is a very focused academic aiming to be the first woman ever admitted into the High Magistry. And members of the High Magistry are basically the top mages holding significant power and influence over the city of Tehran. She thinks that if she's skilled enough, her gender won't matter, but she's wrong. Her peers do not see her as an equal, even though she earned her spot. They even go so far as to assign her a janitor as an assistant rather than a trained mage. But she doesn't have time to worry about their taunting. She only has a few short weeks to prepare for a very important presentation, and if she's going to finish in time, she's going to need her new assistant Tamal's help. Tamal is a Quen, and in Tehran his people are oppressed. He has a tragic past where he was forced to run from his home when the Blight began to take his tribe's people. As he ran towards Tehran for refuge, he lost his family. Now, being a lab assistant isn't typical work for a Quen, but he's smarter than anyone gives him credit for, and he may be able to offer a perspective that the academics lack. While I was always rooting for her, Siona is a very flawed, complex character and isn't necessarily likable. She can be arrogant, selfish, and prejudiced. But with that said, her working relationship with Tamal is fantastic because he really challenges her and encourages her to be a better person, resulting in some very serious and much needed character growth. If you're a sucker for a really cool magic system, I'd definitely recommend this book. Our characters are siphoning energy using magical typewriters and spells, which to me seemed so original and captivating. And I also think it can be representative of the cost of progress we face in our current climate and its effect on our planet and its people. Some of the other big themes discussed throughout this book are colonialism and racism, corruption, and gender inequality. So lots of very serious subject matter. If our reading tastes are similar, I think you'd really enjoy this book, but please be aware that some of the content warnings include suicidal ideation and sexual assault. The assault scene is not too graphic, but use your discretion if you think these issues may trigger you. The next book I picked up was The Thursday Murder Club. I've had this book sitting on my shelf for a while, and I was really prioritizing it this summer because a TV adaptation is releasing on Netflix in August. And even though I don't have a Netflix subscription, I watched the trailer and I have to say it looks pretty good. If you like anxious people or Only Murders in the Building, this book definitely has a similar feel. It's extra fun though because it takes place in a retirement village where these older folks have formed a club to solve murders. What starts as just piecing their way through cold cases from the past becomes a whole lot more personal when the partner planning to expand the retirement community is bludgeoned to death. This is a man that these characters knew, and they are determined to crack the case, maybe even before the police can figure it out. The chapters are really short, and every few chapters we get a journal entry from Joyce, a retired nurse whose former profession proves helpful for the crew, leading to her recruitment into the Thursday Murder Club as its newest member. To me, the characters and the setting are what made this story so enjoyable. The core 4 are likable and bound to make you laugh. My grandmother actually lives in a retirement community, and the things that these characters would say or do really reminded me of her and her friends, not including the murder cases, just to be clear. My main complaint, which was most likely my own fault, was that it took me a second to sort out all of the characters. There are quite a few of them, and because you want to remember all the tiny details in a murder mystery, I feel like I could have benefited from my own Hollywood-style investigation board. Overall, it's a fun read that I'd classify as a cozier mystery whodunit with humor and silly characters rather than extreme thrill and gore. I was engaged, trying to puzzle together who committed these murders without my heart literally beating out of my chest, which I really appreciated. Next, I read The Amalfi Curse by Sarah Penner. This is my second Penner book. I read The Lost Apothecary years ago and thought it was okay. but the cover of this book really caught my attention, and then, of course, the Amalfi setting and the mention of witches convinced me to give it a shot. I don't even know what genre I'd classify this title under. Maybe historical fantasy and mystery with a dash of romance. Honestly, I cannot believe how much this author was able to squeeze into a 330-page book. The story follows Haven, a nautical archaeologist planning to pick up where her recently deceased father left off, exploring historical shipwrecks off the Amalfi coast. But something weird is going on with the water conditions over there, even resulting in a fatal yacht sinking for no apparent reason. Unfortunately, this ends up causing complications with Haven's dive mission, but she's determined to get to the bottom of it. We also follow Mari, a powerful sea witch back in the 1820s who uses her power, turning water into weapon, in order to protect her village from outside threats, like pirates and even malicious men intent on kidnapping the community's witches. Sarah Penner killed the dual timeline. They take place in the exact same location, Positano, only there's 2 centuries between the narratives. I found myself equally intrigued by both timelines, which is not always the case for me, and I just felt like they were expertly woven together and was impressed by the structure. I'm trying to think of how to articulate why I only gave this book a 3.5-star rating when I seemingly only have positive things to say about it, and I don't really know what to tell you other than the fact that I wasn't always fully engaged or really connected to the characters. I thought the setting was dreamy. I loved the scuba, archaeology, and sea witches, but I also found myself reaching for my Nintendo Switch over my Kindle, which is so not normal for me. With that said, it's very much summer where I live, and I think this book makes a great, quick summer season or vacation read. I doubt the story will stay with me for long, but it was enjoyable in the moment, and not every book needs to change my life. Next up is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This year I have been tackling the Stormlight Archive, and it was suggested to me that I read this one before diving into Oathbringer, so that's exactly what I'm doing. In the story, an agreement has been made where a princess from the kingdom of Idris has been arranged to marry the God King, an extremely powerful being who is also the leader of Hallandrin, a kingdom very different from Idris. And this agreement was intended to keep the peace among the 2 kingdoms, with the prospect of war looming between them. The oldest daughter of the king of Idris, Vivenna, has been raised as the expectant future wife of the God King, but when the time comes, he ends up sending his youngest, ill-prepared daughter, Ciri, to Hallandrin instead. Technically still honoring the treaty, but not quite what anyone expected. How will the gods in Hallandrin react to this turn of events, and will Ciri be able to come to terms with this new change of fate? And how will Vivenna feel, free from obligation after a lifetime of thinking she'd be wed to a scary man she didn't even know? We also get the perspective of a lesser god who doesn't take his responsibilities too seriously, but is intrigued by Ciri's recent arrival as his new queen. Additionally, there's the perspective of a very mysterious man with a sentient sword who seems rather involved in this whole potential war issue. This story definitely leans a bit into the romance, and I thought it was the perfect balance between new love and excitement coming in other forms like political intrigue, power, and religion. I'm someone who enjoys a romantic subplot, and I thought this one was done so well. Seriously, these 2 are up there with my precious Mistborn couple. Everyone always praises Sanderson for his world building, and rightfully so, but I do want to acknowledge another strength of his that I've touched on before, and that is his ability to make me feel so strongly about his characters. He's the mind behind many of my favorite characters, including a new favorite from this one, as well as characters that I feel incredibly frustrated with or deceived by, and that last one is particularly notable in this book. Holy cow, I just get so emotionally invested. The magic system in this one is biochromatic breath, which essentially refers to the energy of an individual. To put it very simply, those with more breath are more powerful, and breath can also be transferred into inanimate objects, allowing them to follow the commands ordered by their host. I doubt that's a very good explanation, but just know that it's pretty cool. All in all, I'm really glad I read this when I did. I have been loving the Stormlight Archive so far, but it was kind of nice being introduced to new characters and a new magic system within the Cosmere. I feel like this reignited my excitement for the Stormlight Archive because now I'm eager to pick up on any potential crossovers or Easter eggs there may be as I continue the series. And I also just wanted to say that the messaging of this book is so important. It continues to point out that it is completely okay for people to have differing values or beliefs, and it is better to approach new ideas or cultures with curiosity rather than judgment, which is something we should already know, but a little reminder never hurts. The last book I read in June was The Berry Pickers by Amanda Peters. Joe is a young boy whose family travels from Nova Scotia to Maine in the summers to pick blueberries, hence the title. Unfortunately, tragedy strikes the family when 4-year-old Ruthie, Joe's little sister, goes missing from the fields. They spend years hoping that they'll be reunited with Ruthie, but her absence begins to wear on the family. There's also Norma, who is growing up in an affluent but overprotective family. She has many questions about her past that her parents evade, only leaving her with more confusion. She experiences these dreams that are difficult for her to explain, but just might suggest that there's more to her story than what she's been told. The book alternates between Joe and Norma's points of view. It also spans decades, taking us from their early childhood well into their adulthood. I think they're in their mid-50s by the end. While certain parts of this story are incredibly predictable, that doesn't take away from the journey, which is filled with so much emotion and heartbreak throughout both perspectives. You know I love a powerful book, and this one had moments that had me legitimately wincing. There are most definitely mistakes made and painful scenes that really make you feel for the characters. This was Peters' debut novel, and it earned her several awards, which does not surprise me at all. It's well-crafted, immersive, and vulnerable, touching upon important topics including Indigenous culture, loss, addiction, and complex family dynamics. I can see how this book could be hit or miss for many readers, but I think I would recommend it if you wouldn't mind a slower-paced, heartbreaking story with flawed characters. I was expecting it to be more of a mystery, and while it didn't have that same level of intrigue or puzzling qualities a mystery would typically have, I was kept engaged, literally just hoping for the best. Beautifully bittersweet for sure. So those are all of the books that I read in June. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye!